Welcome everyone. My name is Sertaç Semikoğlu. As you by now know, this term's speaker series are dedicated to understanding dreams and aspirations and imaginations. We are kind of trying to understand imaginaries from a theoretical, scholarly, as well as practitioners' point of view. And today we have the honor of hosting our very own IGP alumni. So Seb Paredes Smith is a PhD researcher at the UCL Institute for Global Prosperity, focusing on the intersections of formal and informal housing, finance, and community economies. With a background in architecture and hands-on experience in fieldwork, Sebastian brings a critical perspective to his practice as a policy consultant and researcher, aiming to bridge academic insights with practical applications that foster inclusive and prosperous futures. Seb has experience in policy design and assessment, innovative urban practices and research. He has worked with institutions such as Inter-American Development Bank, Swiss Contact, the International Finance Corporation, and government institutions such as the Ministry of Housing and Municipality of Lima. Layesca, standing next to him, is a graduate of the Institute for Global Prosperity and co-founder of MUTUO. I want you to kind of really listen closely to these biographies. Right? Some of them entail maybe your future aspirations or giving you ideas for even better ones. A platform dedicated to collaborative urban and social initiatives with a focus on habitat prosperity. Mar works to address social changes through innovative solutions. Her work bridges consultancy, policy, and practice, aiming to foster social justice and decolonial lenses in diverse settings. Mar has extensive experience in international development and consultancy with institutions such as the Inter-American Development Bank, the World Bank, Unesco, and Municipality of Lima in Peru. Her practice both in policy and experimental field projects has informed her efforts to contribute to communities and shaping prosperous cities. So I'd like to, before I fully take them on board, I want to also thank Chris Harker for suggesting these two very brilliant alumni to present us today. And their talk is titled A Dream of Adequate Housing, dealing with the untenable for human flourishing. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me in the back? Good? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Sertaç, for the introduction. Some of you might already know me as PTA in some of the PI models, but for the EPP, GP, and PPP, nice to meet you. As Sertaç mentioned, the title of this is A Dream of Adequate Housing, dealing with the unplannable for human flourishing. Me, Seb, and Mar, we both are co-founders of MUTUO. MUTUO is a former social enterprise that now works as a consultancy agency. It's based on Lima. And as mentioned, it's focused in habitat prosperity, innovation to more sustainable cities, and the intersection between cultural activities and the urban field. So I will begin. Before starting, we just want to let you know. Sorry. There you go. We just want to let you know that there's going to be a film screening in between the presentation, but before the film, we think it's key to start by introducing the context of urban informality in Lima, in Peru, but specifically in Lima. First, in general, urban informality is presented as the result of the lack in quotations, to adapt the ideal models of formality, usually ideated in the global north for the global south. Thus, these urban realities are deemed as the unplannable, those that could not be planned, and become an object of development. This is a reference from Roy and Andrew Roy. In this talk, we're going to present the process of dealing with the unplannable and how planning from within the informal realm. This means acknowledging the informal as a space for epistemological creation, allowed us to push the limits of a state program called Techo Propio and achieve better results. This process allowed us as planners to engage with the family's dreams and promote results that truly align with their needs and expectations. And this was supported in knowledge and lived experience that they had from the informal realm. So, in Peru, the process of informal urbanization is called barriadas. It's the process and also the geographical space. Barriadas urbanism is usually a reverse form of the formal urbanization process. Formal trajectories of urbanization, as you can see, in state and private urbanism usually start with authorization and planning, continuing with the design and the provision of infrastructure, and finishing with the award of the unit and later the dwelling. So in barriadas, actually, the process is completely opposite. First, in barriadas urbanism, people dwell first as an occupation initiative to resist and occupy the land as a way of claiming the right to adequate housing. So planning is an ongoing process of resistance to finally achieve legal tenure, and later this triggers the possibility of having public infrastructure and the recognition of the right to the city. In Peru, this is the dominant reality of the cities, and it's a process that can last 20 to 25 years. And in the last 20 years, and this is very, it's happening currently. In the last 20 years, 93% of the new urban land comes from variations of the barriada process, or this informal urbanization process. And this is how an early stage barriada would look like, usually in the outskirts of the city and with very precarious infrastructure, very precarious urban infrastructure. So I think now we're going to pass to the movie, to the short movie. It's a micro documentary. And let me see if this, how this starts. All right.
Working on something. No.
Bueno, muchachos, vamos a primero nosotros introducir un poco qué ha sido este proceso. Finales de 2017 iniciamos con el trabajo de campo acá el 3 de diciembre. Conocimos a la señora directora del programa. Y en el 2018 hicimos el concurso que ustedes ganaron. Sus diseños han sido introducidos para poder trabajarlos dentro de los presupuestos. Han tenido algunas modificaciones que hemos tenido que ir ajustando juntos. Y felizmente estamos hoy día acá en la obra, ya haciendo realidad el proyecto de la señora Ada, ¿no? Y principalmente esta ceremonia es para agradecerle a la señora Ada la confianza que ha depositado en nosotros. Con este gesto muy simbólico, muy pequeñito en realidad, queremos representar el inicio de un proyecto que esperamos que sea súper bueno para la señora Ada, que todo lo que venga después de esta casa sea para bien, ¿no?
Todo a partir de acá para la señora Ada y su familia sea prosperidad y que más familias del Perú puedan, como ella, acceder a una mejor vivienda y una mejor calidad de vida.
La verdad que estoy bien agradecida que Dios haya puesto en mi camino a MUTUO para yo darle una mejor calidad de vida a mi familia.
Y la verdad que sí me siento feliz, me siento orgullosa de también poner un granito de arena, ¿ok? Y colaborar para que la señora tenga una buena casa.
Nosotros, como los arquitectos, Alfredo, Osvaldo, yo, siempre nuestro compromiso fue tratar de generar una vivienda social de calidad. Y esperamos que esta construcción sea el ejemplo que va a seguir por muchas personas que están en este rubro. Finalmente, agradecer a MUTUO que nos dio la oportunidad de poder dar nuestro pequeño grano de arena y convertir el sueño de una vivienda social de calidad en realidad.
Diseño que acondiciona el terreno, los ambientes me parece excelente, ventilados, iluminados. Mi parecer está bonito y hay que poner ímpetu en las cosas que tenemos que hacer para entregar también y sea a gusto tanto el dueño y yo también como maestro, ¿no? Es una construcción segura porque se ha respetado todo. ¿Para qué? Para que todo quede estable. Que quede bien contento el dueño y contento me voy.
Francisco participó desde la etapa en que se desarrollaba el concurso arquitectónico. Nosotros colaboramos, un grupo de asociados de Capeco, en financiar parte de este concurso. Luego, una vez que ya se definieron los proyectos ganadores, efectivamente comenzamos a articular con una serie de actores para poder incorporar este proyecto dentro de la lógica y de los procedimientos establecidos por el programa Techo Propio bajo la modalidad de construcción en sitio propio, porque era el que se aplicaba para la realidad de una familia que era propietaria de un lote de vivienda y que quería adquirir, o mejor dicho, construir una vivienda de manera formal. Fue muy interesante porque no solamente se logró obtener el subsidio, incorporar a empresas proveedoras de materiales serias que permitieran asegurar la calidad de la edificación, sino que también se consiguió que una entidad financiera, la Caja de Piura, decidiera otorgar con sus propios recursos y no recursos del Estado el crédito complementario que requería la familia de la señora Huamán para poder sacar adelante. Hay familias que una vez que han visto la vivienda, la calidad de la vivienda, la dimensión, la distribución de ambientes de la vivienda, se han animado también a entrar en este proyecto.
Desde que comenzamos a ver este proyecto, realmente me entusiasmó muchísimo porque uno de los factores claves para la actividad a las familias más pobres es justamente encontrarles un diseño hecho por un arquitecto. Hay un desarrollo no solamente arquitectónico, sino además que encaja perfectamente con lo que la familia espera. Eso es fundamental. Está comprometido 100%. Estamos trabajando por toda la vivienda social. Y estoy hablando de este tipo de proyecto que se ha desarrollado con MUTUO, el crédito de vivienda, el crédito complementario, ABN, hay mucho para hacer. Y este es un proyecto que tiene la facultad de ayudar a la familia a encontrar un mejor diseño para su vivienda, ayudar a la familia para encontrar sistemas de crédito que le ayuden y ayudar a hacer un cambio en la zona. O sea, aquí hay un cambio que se va a generar, digamos, con todas las familias que hay alrededor, para que vean que sí es posible tener un patrimonio que le dé sustento económico para el desarrollo de toda su familia. Estamos muy interesados en participar en este proyecto con mucho mayor intensidad, no con una o dos entidades técnicas, sino con muchas más, y no solamente a nivel de un sitio focalizado, sino hacerlo más amplio.
Al conocer el caso de la señora Ada, nosotros lo tomamos en primer lugar con mucha pasión y también con transparencia, para poder nosotros desarrollar y poder explicarle cómo podríamos nosotros financiarle un crédito. Ella cumplía el requisito de la capacidad de ahorro, solvencia moral y la capacidad de pago. Es ahí donde nosotros identificamos una potencial cliente. Hizo una sinergia con el Estado, ya que ellos le subsidiaron una parte y nosotros la diferencia, para que ella pueda lograr el objetivo de la construcción final de su municipio. Se le hizo un acompañamiento desde el día 1, desde el requerimiento de documentos, desde también el acompañamiento a la notaría y la explicación de cada cláusula para que ella pueda estar tranquila y sobre todo para nosotros poder cumplir con la transparencia, que es lo que nos caracteriza. ¿Qué fortaleció el crédito de la señora Ada? Fueron los actores, principalmente el Fondo de Vivienda, la empresa MUTUO y la entidad técnica. Estas tres empresas nos permitió a nosotros a tener mayor seguridad en el financiamiento, debido a que ellos han podido En primer lugar, adecuar este programa para que se pueda llevar a cabo. Y en segundo lugar, la experiencia que posee cada uno de ellos. Es la primera vez que observo la construcción de una vivienda con un diseño necesario y con un presupuesto alcanzable para este perfil de persona.
Estoy más tranquila, porque mis hijos están en un sitio seguro. Siento que ellos están más protegidos. Antes tenía siempre la preocupación de que la calamina vaya a caer encima de ellos, les vaya a lastimar. Esa era mi mayor preocupación. Están descansando bien o mal por el tema del frío también que pasaba. No podíamos dormir en la noche porque los gatos saltan y saltan en el techo. En la casa de maderita que tenía sentíamos mucho calor. Hacía demasiado calor que al cuarto no podíamos ni entrar de día. Solamente entrábamos en las noches para dormir, nada más, porque mayormente paramos en la sala.
Y entonces decía que la importancia de la vivienda no está en lo que es en sí misma como un objeto construido, sino en lo que es capaz de detonar en la vida de las personas. Esa es la filosofía que hemos buscado mantener detrás de este proyecto.
Desde que me he mudado ahora, que ya la casa está completa y ya hecha, un temblor, algo, y sé que no va a pasar nada. Lo que más me gusta, siempre digo que son mis plantas. El modelo de la casa, no tengo que estar preocupándome que el recibo de luz me va a venir demasiado caro, porque hasta las 7 de la noche estamos con la luz apagada y normal. Ahora tenemos las ventanas, es más fresco, y es el aire natural que entra, y no tenemos necesidad de estar poniendo la ventiladora. Y dejamos la parte de la arena a un lado, como le digo, el polvo, las polillas. Ahora no, ahora dormimos placenteramente toda la noche, no estoy con la preocupación por mis hijos. Ahora duermo tranquila.
Para nosotros, promover vivienda social no se trata solo de promover la construcción de 4 paredes y un techo, sino de entrar en sintonía con los sueños, las aspiraciones y las ilusiones de las familias que van a residir en esas viviendas. Nosotros pensamos en las viviendas adecuadas como aquellas que habilitan en las personas que viven dentro interacciones significativas. Una vivienda social que tome en cuenta la cantidad de miembros de una familia y esté construida para todos ellos, para que se cultiven de manera privada también, para que descansen con la suficiente calidad y eso impacte en la calidad de su trabajo al mismo tiempo. Con espacios recreativos que me permitan cultivar aficiones, con un área libre que me permita recibir la luz del sol. Una vivienda que me provoque compartir con mi familia y con mis amigos en el barrio.
Estamos súper contentos con el resultado de la casa. Estamos muy agradecidos con todas las instituciones que han participado en el apoyo de todo este proceso, principalmente CAPECO, APEP, Caja Piura, la entidad técnica Jaire que construyó la casa, el maestro Brand Talí. Principalmente lo que queremos demostrar con esta experiencia es que a través de una adecuada asistencia técnica y planificación financiera es posible mejorar el resultado de los programas de financiamiento de vivienda del programa Techo Propio. Pero esencialmente lo más importante fue que planificamos con la señora un periodo de tiempo en el que pudo ahorrar el dinero para complementar ese presupuesto y adicionalmente presentarse con un mejor perfil a las entidades financieras para conseguir el crédito hipotecario que terminó de consolidar el presupuesto de la obra. Y es así que logramos consolidar el presupuesto completo de la primera etapa de la obra, cubriendo enteramente todas las necesidades espaciales de la familia hoy.
I hope you enjoy the short film. And as mentioned in the film, for us, promoting social housing means engaging with people's reality, dreams, and needs. When we engage with the Techo Propio program, we recognize its limitations in fully addressing the family's aspirations. Therefore, we sought to expand the program's outcomes by incorporating Mrs. Huamán expectations and lived experience into the planning process. We planned with her when we were finding some challenges to expand the outcomes of the program. While planning with her, she expressed that she possessed extensive experience in informal finance groups known as juntas and banquitos in Peru. Banquitos means little bank, juntas is like pulling money together. So in academia, it's known as roscas. These mechanisms enable her to rapidly accumulate large sums of money and generate additional income through the reinvestment of these savings. And so by acknowledging this experience, we leverage her knowledge to push the formal limits of the program and plan with her a strategy to convince finance institution, in this case Caja Piura, as you have seen, to extend the funding of her project and finally achieve her budget expectations and ultimately the expected house she had dreamed of. So we had to mediate between her social and economic reality and the formal requirements of the program and the finance institution. We built with her, sorry, I haven't changed there. We built with her a blended finance strategy compounded by savings, subsidy, and a large portion of mortgage fund, or mortgage loan, which was particularly challenging. The mortgage loan required her to meet a formal income threshold with verifiable income. And if you can see the distribution of her income, only 40% of her income was formal and the rest comes from informal sources. And the threshold was around the 75% of her monthly income, but that 35% was still informal. So together we developed this savings strategy that allowed her to complete the 30% of the finance blend. But with her experience in informal finance mechanisms, and we monitor the income she generated over time with these funds. This process enabled us to compile sufficient verifiable information about her informal economic activities. So with the data we collected with that monitoring, we were able to persuade the bank to approve the mortgage loan and recognize that additional 35% that we were needed to include in the income distribution to achieve the mortgage loan threshold. Yeah, excellent. Now I'm going to hand to Mark to continue the presentation.
So,
okay.
So why is all this important and how does it relate to human flourishing? An assessment of the impact of this process helped us recognize the power of planning housing within informality, and comparing it to what a formal housing program would not have achieved alone if it was done alone. So, formal housing policies and programs usually center their goals in frameworks such as the right to adequate housing framework, taking it as a checklist of mostly material conditions that are intended to be achieved. So we have the components: security of tenure, availability of services, affordability, habitability, accessibility, location, and cultural adequacy. So none of these are bad, but we felt that there are limits to planning, taking into account only these goals. Because they usually focus on delivering numbers, houses, as I said in the short film also, that are like shoe boxes, 4 walls and a roof that do not take into consideration the informal dwellers' reality, their needs, or their aspirations. They usually look like this. They are all the same. They are very small. So when assessing the results of the process of Incesada, it seemed necessary to look through lenses and goals that allowed for more space to consider a pluriverse of material, psychological, and communitarian dimensions and dynamics that are part of the people's dreams of housing. So we used this framework, which is the list of 10 central capabilities developed by Marta Nussbaum based on Amartya Sen's theory. These serve both as a lens to complement the dimensions of the right to adequate housing, but also to better align to Mrs. Ada's idea of what housing should be. This takes into account several social, psychological considerations, intangible considerations, not only tangible considerations, that build a more holistic understanding of what the power of housing when promoting human flourishing. So here we have like the aspiration of life, to be able to live a life of normal length, not dying prematurely. Bodily health, to be able to have good health, to have adequate shelter. Bodily integrity, to be able to move freely, to be secure against violence. Senses, imagination, and thought, to be able to use your senses to imagine, to think, and engage in self-cultivation. Practical reasoning to be able to plan your own life according to your beliefs. Emotions to be able to feel attachment and experience emotions. Affiliation to be able to live with others and engage in social interactions with respect. Other species to be able to live with other species with respect. Play to be able to play and enjoy recreational activities. And control over one's environment to be able to take part in political choices, to hold property, and seek meaningful employment. So if we plan housing from these lenses and not only the right to adequate housing lenses, our goals are a bit different and broader. So here we have a little bit of how we think the material and immaterial dimensions are distributed between both frameworks. So this is what we say, the right to adequate housing is a little bit in practice, really, a little bit more tended towards material dimensions. And the capabilities approach allowed us to also have these other goals, which are psychological, social, and material. So for instance, when Ada first moved to her house, she started telling us these sort of phrases. She said, for the first time, my children feel that they can invite friends in without feeling ashamed. So of course, there's a goal of habitability, but we are also thinking about like how we inhabit the place, that it should enable affiliation and play, right? If we are just in a shoebox, 4 walls and a roof, sometimes this is not possible. I mean, the house is so small that it's not possible to even play or to be with friends inside. What I like the most about my house, they are my plants. You saw this in the short movie. So again, there's an habitability goal, but also it's focused on other species, on play, and allowing people to feel emotions, good and bad, inside their houses. I used to save small amounts of money, but with the house plans done, my goal was to build the whole first stage of the house, not by bits. So affordability is important, but also to allow people to have practical reasoning and control of over their environment. Now I don't have to wake up in the night, worried about my children, thinking that the roof will fall because of the cats. This is the first week in years that I have been able to sleep all night long. When you heard these phrases, it was very shocking to us to know that for 20 years, she hadn't had one day that she has lived all night long. So here we can see again that habitability and the right to adequate housing is important, but because it is intersected with life, with bodily health, with emotions. I like to cook to my family before I needed to use the patio and the living space. His washing was done outside in a bucket. We did not have water connection, no bathroom. Availability of service and habitability are important, and they are intersected to a bodily health and an affiliation dimension. Now my children can study until late with natural light. We don't need to turn on the light until 7 p.m. so I don't have to worry about the electricity bill being too expensive. Again, habitability is always there, but also practical reasoning and senses, imagination and thought. It is important because we can self-cultivate inside a house. So,
previous one. Yeah. Okay, so now, when comparing the outcomes of this planning process rooted in the experience of informality of the people we co-plan it, with the typical approach of techo propio, which is the picture on the right, we can notice a clear distinction, right? So your left, our right, sorry. In a way, the conventional planning from without, which is the way that technocratic and top-down planning happens in these kind of programs, has a certain limit of what people can expect from their housing. And this approach prioritizes mass production and easy deliverable housing units over meaningful engagement with people's lived experience, aspirations, and ultimately dreams. And from our experience, we have noticed that planning within the possibilities of informality, on the other hand, can produce outcomes like the one we have just presented in the video. In a way, this is a house that just fits the budget, and the other one is a budget that can consider dreams of the people. And just want to mention one thing on the budget. So the program here on your left, it's mainly comprised of a subsidy, and they require small savings from the family. So there's not much room for maneuver on the family side on what they can receive. And on the other side, you can see that there was like more agency on the family of what they can expect, because they were putting more elements into the production of the house. They were planning from the beginning what they wanted, and in a sense they can decide what are the efforts that they can commit with.
So in conclusion, the tensions between formality and informality make formal institutions to push planning models that only see the informal city as an object of development, rather than a space where people can dream and can build communities and knowledge. Thus, it is key to acknowledge informality as a space of epistemological production, one that can provide important inputs for planning according to people's lived experience, dreams, and life expectations, one that could promote a planning practice that is more suitable than the formal good practices of planning. These acknowledgement, so the acknowledgement of these epistemologies for planning are key to mediate the aforementioned tensions between formal and informal, and therefore allowing the results of planning to truly promote human flourishing.
That's it.
I think that's it.
I don't know if I need to wear a microphone, but great job. Thank you very much, guys. I'm very excited. Also, okay, when I'm listening to you, I have to say, I think you displayed us on top of your success, right? Like when I'm listening, I'm also thinking about all the challenges embedded into transformative work. And I want a minute of your patience to explain this. When you are trying to do a transformative work, you are not just putting up the labor to do the transformation. You also want it to be contagious, right? You want it to be intelligible by others. You want it to be desired by others so that it would spread. That's what I mean by contagious. Not referring to the corridor in which this video seemed to be recorded. And that means you need to kind of help people that what they cannot imagine is possible. So I think there are multiple challenges embedded here, which you were doing your academic work, PhD, masters, like trying to translate it into some sort of academic comprehensibility. You are also doing the video, like kind of the short video that you created is to reach out to bigger, like public probably, and you are doing the actual transformation. So I don't know how to put this into a question really. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the process, like at which point you felt a need to explain certain processes a little bit more. As in, you know, like kind of, when did you decide to do the video? How did you kind of detect people's need for dignity, which I think is also attached to, not telling here now, right? It's kind of, we have a fantastic postgraduate student doing work on dignity, because it's not just about, you know, meeting their needs, it's also kind of meeting their desires, and there's an element of dignity. Can you tell us a little bit about the process? Not too long. I don't want to kind of feel all these burning questions, but yeah, it's just to kind of tell us a little bit about your own struggles, really.
Sure.
Well,
Yes, well, it was actually a long, exhausting process. That actually would take at least 1 hour to tell it all. But I mean, we are architects. We were working already in the social field, so we had a motivation to address these kind of issues. We had a special experience with a family who was like the family of a safeguard,
yeah.
in a beach in Lima, that we wanted to help him with the construction of his house. They kind of had the money, so we wanted to plan the house with him and everything.
He approached.
Yeah, he approached to us and to other friends, and so in the end, during the planning process, that he was very serious about like how much he wanted architects to plan the house and to design the house, because this is usually done just like whatever, you know. And how his family had been saving money to actually build a good house. And so in the end, we were in the middle of this process, and suddenly his mother was sick, and they had to spend all the money they had, because like sadly in Peru, like health institutions are not working really well. So they just had to invest all the money they had been saving on the mother's health. And so the dream of the house was like done. There was nothing else to do. We didn't know how to help him more, how to help him achieve a loan, or what subsidies were there and everything. And so we started to research, really. So what was there? What was happening in Lima? What were
Which
the
year was
format?
it?
Sorry?
Which year was it? Because it's been going on for several years, obviously.
Yes, this
This
was
was 2015, I think. Yeah.
almost 10 years.
Plan long term. That's the
But-
message to all
Yeah.
discussions.
But this particular project we start in 2018. We begin with like a architecture competition, and after that we decided to embark into the development of the project. We started with 5 families, but Mrs. Huamán family was the only one who remained constant in the process, because also there were many other social layers that disallowed other families to continue in the process. And at some point she trusted us enough to just go on. She was like she trusted enough to be part of the process with us. So in a way she sort of keep going, because she felt part of like the agents that were pushing for this.
Yeah, but between 2015 and 2018, when the actual competition started, like we had to plan the whole competition and to meet this. CAPECO is the Camera of Construction Companies.
It's an association of
Yeah.
private entities.
And APET, like the other old guy, is the president of the technical entities that build the formal housing program houses. And so we had to reach them and convince them to work with us. Because it was a whole process of 2 years also, go to the community, because we had some friends working there, started talking to the families, convince the families to work with us and to be part of the competition, because the competition was actually like an architecture competition that was open to the world for groups of architects, for teams of architects to develop the designs of 5 families in this particular community. So they have to accept to be part of the competition, to show their realities, to show their needs and everything. We also have to deal with how to show them, how much to show them, how not to invade their privacy. So it was like thinking of a lot of things. That's why I mean, it was exhausting and it was very, very challenging.
Very rewarding. Yeah.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes. But it took several years, you know. Then in 2018 was the competition, but it took us until, I think this is early 2021 when the house was finished.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and it was 8 months of planning with for her to save the money for the bank to approve the loan.
Yeah, finances.
we decided to make the movie like when we started the construction, because we said like otherwise there's no possibility to tell just in words like what was this, you know, and it was huge for us. And so we had a good friend who was a videographer. He is a videographer and he's really good. And he said, okay, I'm on board. And he produced the short film.
Thank you. Now let's open the floor for questions. Whoever wants to go first. Yes, Chris.
2 questions. Thank you very much. Mark, could you just say a bit about how your time at IGP, maybe your dissertation, fed into this process? Seb, you started to talk about the limitations. When we look at that slide, obviously the house that was built is much better than the crack that was on the left. So what are the limits to scaling, right? Because
Yes.
it's not a hard sell on one hand, but I know, you know, there are complications.
Well, actually, I came here to do the master's in late 2018 until 2019. So like we had one person in Peru looking for the project when we were here. And I think my time in the IGP helped me name a lot of things that I wasn't able to name in my practice, you know? Like there was specific concepts like prosperity itself, you know, human flourishing, human development. That's when I started approaching this framework, the capabilities approach framework. I hadn't known about Amartya Sen in my life. You know, I was a practitioner, I was an architect, was like that. And then I started noticing like all these whole concepts and frameworks that helped me understand what was happening, understand what we were doing, and what we wanted to keep doing, you know. And my dissertation was basically about just comparing these 2 approaches, the right to adequate housing and the capabilities approach. Actually, I did a small fieldwork in Kenya, just trying to prove that housing is not only about the house, but it's also about the home. So what I'm trying to say is there are a lot of intangible dimensions that are needed to be set as goals too, you know. We cannot only say, okay, so you have to have a roof that, you know, that it does not get distracted when an earthquake comes. But it has to be a nice roof, you know, that creates a really nice space that allows you to have plants if you want, you know, that allows you to cultivate yourself, as she said, to have friends and not be ashamed. I think that so important. Like when she told us, like, it's the first time my children actually bring friends to the house. Like for some of us, this must be like something we do every day since day 1 in our lives, right? Like having friends home and not feeling ashamed of where we're bringing them. But for them, it was huge change. So yeah, I think my time in the IGP just made my eyes open more.
Anything you want to add?
Yes, scalability, right? Well, the limitations of the program are pretty clear. Like you just receive what they give you. You can contribute with small savings, but you are not entitled of having freedom of what do you want as a house. On this other side, we're using the same program, but we are like pushing the limits to include more budget, which is in the rules of in the norms of the program. But the problem is that technical entities that are usually the ones that enact the program, they just want to get rid of houses very fast. So they build houses. They have, I mean, they have built in the last, I think, 10 years, 500,000 houses, more than 500,000 houses. But the thing is, like, there are certain entities that are like focused on just making numbers, and there are ones that are a bit more committed. So I think it's a matter of like pushing from a policy perspective, what are the outcomes that we want to produce with when delivering these houses. In a way, the additional budget that people can claim to from banks or they can have savings, it's catalytic in the change. So you can see houses that are done just with the subsidy and small savings, and then houses that are done with the savings and the subsidy, and the difference is massive. Even though it's this inside the program might not be the best house and not similar to the one that we made, which is it has taken a little more time, like maybe twice the time that a regular process in the program takes. But I think with more replication of this, it could start building some momentum on and some knowledge for the entities that are usually entitled of applying the program, to be more aware of what are the possibilities if they take into account the people's dreams.
Here, I think I saw a hand over here. Was it yours? Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you so much for sharing this inspiring work that you do. I'm wondering if you could share with us the process and to what extent the family get involved in the planning process.
Did you guys at the back here? The process through which the families are involved.
Because I assume that they're like sort of like their problems and their needs are something that they're already aware of, but their aspirations or like the dreams or like visions of how they want to clean their house must be something that
Yes.
you as an architect must help them to contact you.
Excellent.
Well, yes, from the beginning, like from the competition, it was important for us to have like each of the families, because it was first 5 families were involved in the project, to know their specific needs. I mean, that the designs would not be the same for each of these families. It was not possible. We had a family that had 7 members. Their family, they were 4. There was another family with 5, and so on, you know, and they had specific needs. Also about, for example, how important it was for her to have a patio and plants and everything, you know. So this all was summarized in a small document that was given to the participants, you know, in order for them to design the house according to these needs. Afterwards, when the winners were selected, we worked for a period of 5 months, I think, also, with the architects, a small group of interns, and the families also, just to adjust what the architects had done in the design to what the people actually envisioned, right? So it was a very committed process, you know, to just have them involved and get what they really wanted from the house.
That particular part is the one that makes it a bit more time consuming if you compare it with the regular process of the program, because that's the part where you include the family's input, and the families has to also I mean, they have to express how are they going to fund it if they want more things in the house. So it's a process of like mediating with the family, the architects who are designing, us as like managers of the whole thing, and finding the ways to make whatever is put in the paper to be able to be funded and to find the ways to fund it. So that's where the financial planning and the technical planning and the institutional planning and everything comes apart. That's the most difficult part.
And also, I think a part that was important is that they were our clients. They were not beneficiaries. We were back then a social enterprise, so they hired us to produce the competition, you know? So they paid us. It was like a symbolic amount of money, but it was very important for them to feel that they could tell us, I want this.
Right.
Like, you are not giving me this thing as a gift, you know?
Yeah.
I think acknowledging that was also very important for us.
Thank you. Yuan? And very briefly, in your experience, what caused you to transit from a social enterprise to a consultancy firm, and how do you see the different roles these two organizations play? Everybody is interested in the processing.
First, we started as a social enterprise. We had this idea of scaling the competition model, which was very, it created a lot of economic value for us. Like it allows us to have some traction as an enterprise. We opened the competition and we had like around 800 architects participating. 300 teams of around. So people pay a small fee to participate. So the business model was running for like the company. We generate some revenues and we could fund our activities and developing the project afterwards. We did the competition. We tried to replicate another competition, but the social mission was not completely accomplished at that point. So we had to like enter into many reassessment processes to find a business model that could fit both economic value and social value. We never achieved that situation. So we noticed that we had a lot of knowledge on this process of like iterating a long time, trying to push the limits of the project and try to establish a model that could allow us to achieve both social and economic value. But since we couldn't, we decided like let's pull all this knowledge together and start like moving the economic value to another sector. So we decided to create knowledge products. And then we started to have some connections with some people that was in consultancy. And we start saying like, okay, we have some knowledge, we can maybe provide some assessment to policy or to programs or to, I don't know, specific things. And that's how we enter the consultancy world. But the whole knowledge we were using to leverage our capacity of do that, it comes from the social enterprise.
And I think also it was a matter of our lives and
Right.
our own dreams, because we moved here almost for good. Well, not for good, but I don't know, but I mean, for a long time. And so it was hard to manage the social enterprise from here. We had a coordinator for a little bit of time, but then was like it cost a lot, you know. And so we started noticing that a way of continue participating in this kind of knowledge production was like with consultancy. And so the iteration basically was done then when we decided to move here.
Thank you. And I saw another hand, I think, over here. Yes, you.
Oh, so thinking about the finance part, and there were two things, the informal side. Is there any way possible to formalize the informal part a little bit more? If you think about the community aspect, so you said one family has got 7 members, another might have 5 or 4. So rather than them raising capital separately, how about they raise capital collectively? And then you're able to make use of the land as well as the finances collectively. And then that solves this problem at a bit more of a scale rather than if I do it, you do it. And
yeah,
that'd be a solution, or I'm sure you've thought about it, but I would just have to listen.
I mean, it's a model that works for different countries. For example, in Tanzania, they have these collective money pools to, for instance, buy land to build houses. But usually, in contexts like Peru, it's a highly neoliberalized, formalized land, individual plots. People does not engage collectively in building the house. Maybe in pulling together people to settle in a piece of land. That's a lot of collective activity. But whenever the formalization programs of the government get to that place, the whole collective action is individualized in plots. So people get a plot of land with a land title, and then housing is your problem. So it's a way, like political economic programs, like programs with certain political economic objectives, decollectivize the housing process into an individual thing. So I give you land, then you have to sort of like a De Soto approach. I give you land, you get a mortgage loan or a loan or something that allows you to invest in housing. But we thought one time, I think very early in the process, to do a collective loan system, but it didn't work because, I mean, the system was established in a way, it would have been more challenging for us to achieve any impact.
It would be necessary to have like a specific program, like a formal program from the institutions, from the Ministry of Housing, to allow that to actually happen, But as Sebastian says, like our economy is super liberalized, and like the Ministry of Housing is just pushing to have one by one, and so it's also, I think, a matter of political decisions.
You might have a space for one minor. Do you have a follow-up?
There's one right.
Yes, at the very last.
Could you speak to your interactions with the private and public
Yes.
bank and the I'm curious as to what misconceptions they had that then were how they got that change.
Well, we started back then. We were like young, very, I don't know how to say this, but we thought we could talk to everybody and that we would get a meeting and everything. So anytime we saw someone in some event, we would approach them and start talking about the project and everything. And it sort of happened. We met a partner of the Capeco CEO who was interested in what we were saying and invited us to have a meeting in his room. And suddenly the Capeco CEO was there, also in the room. We started talking about everything, and they said, well, like, we would like, yes, of course, to participate in the competition, to give you a little bit of support and you can use our name and everything, but we needed more than the name, you know, we needed money also. And so said, well, we actually need money. You give us a little bit of money because like having the whole competition, you know, it was a huge thing too, you know, to produce. It was a pre-production, production, and post-production. And they said, okay, I think we can give you a little bit of money, so let's talk. And they gathered.
No, actually say no, we cannot, but we can like make a crowdfunding with our friends.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so a lot of seven companies from Capeco, so from this association, gave us money for that. Then because of Capeco, we met the president of CAPET, of the technical institutions. Because of them, we also had meetings with different financial institutions as Caja Piura, which was the one that finally got into the project. So I guess it was a matter of luck at a point, but also of trying, of thinking that we were able to, and I'm not trying to say like we can do everything because I don't believe in that. But of course we were also very bold, I think, at the beginning. Like right now, I think about it and, you know, I'm a little bit lazy and I don't want to approach everybody and tell them, but we believed so much on this project that we approached everybody.
There's a Sufi saying that goes, you cannot find by searching, but those who find are only the ones who search. So it's a little bit like that, I guess. Well, thank you for coming today in this very cold weather. I also, before we thank the speakers, I want to thank the less visible kind of coordinators, Alex Pim sitting right here, well, Elena Scully just dashed out, and Velvet Young from the faculty, and of course, our very own Sebastian Paredes Smith and Mar Layesca. If you need to ask any questions about the processes they had to accomplish, they had to struggle with, you can find them in the alumni outlook list, right? Thank you. Please join me in thanking them. Thank you very much. Amazing.